Don't forget to like and share this broadcast with your friends and family on Facebook Live as well as on YouTube. Let all of your friends and family know to subscribe so that you know when the Center of Hope is going live.
Welcome, and I'm your co-host on tonight, Bishop Mitchell Taylor. Welcome to Real Talk. And if it's Monday night and it's 9 p.m., it is time for Real Talk. Listen, as you're coming into the virtual space on tonight, hit the share button, tag as many people as you possibly can, and let them know that Real Talk is on the air. I know that many of you have been enjoying this extended weekend. Labor Day, some people call it the last holiday of the summer, and I guess it is in some respects. And many people were spending time with family and friends and barbecuing and all those things that folks do on the Labor Day weekend. And so we're so grateful tonight that the sun has set it, the heat has subsided. Today we had some extenuating heat on today, especially coming out of this weekend. I think maybe Friday night, it was really, really cool. Had the windows open, a tremendous, I guess you would call it a fall breeze. And it fooled me for a minute because Sunday morning, that temperature went right back up. And we were reminded that we're still in the summer. And so we're grateful on tonight for the different seasons. Justina Sessions, bless you on tonight. Joanne Thomas, Pastor Joanne Thomas, bless you on tonight. Priscilla Hampton, bless you. Barbara, bless you. Claudette, bless you. Mother Gray, all right, they're coming into the virtual space on tonight. And we are getting ready for this exciting conversation. As you're coming into the virtual space, just please hit that share button and tag as many people as you can and let them know that we are live and on the air. All right, so for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about bridging the generational gaps. And we've been talking, myself and Bishop Page have been talking very intently about how to bridge the gap and communicate between generations and try to build some continuity and some relative continuity between, you know, the millennials, the Zs, the alphas, the baby boomers, and beyond. And so it's been a fruitful conversation, very interesting conversation. And I believe that tonight will be no different. And Overseer Kayshawn Joseph has been a tremendous blessing to us over the last couple of weeks. And we're going to be joined tonight by a couple of young giants in the faith on tonight that are going to be with us on this evening. And just to take a minute to introduce our guest on this evening, Elder Christina Barr is going to be with us on this evening, and she is the daughter of Bishop Thomas C. Barr and Pastor Sandra Barr of the Greenpoint Tabernacle of Praise in the Bronx, New York. Christina devoted her life to Christ at a young age and sought salvation in baptism at the tender age of 8 years old. Her love for music and God has molded her into a dynamic worship leader, singer, and songwriter. Throughout her teenage years, she attended ministerial training classes at Greenpoint Tabernacle and began to lead youth Bible study groups at the church. In July of 2016, Christina finally accepted the call to ministry and was licensed to preach. In August of 2023, Christina was entrusted with greater responsibility and ordained as elder in the Lord's church. Her love for teaching has brought her into the field of education. In 2020, she graduated from Kingsborough Community College. She has worked for nonprofit youth programs and early childhood centers and is currently a teaching assistant in pursuit of her undergraduate degree in English education. Christina believes in evangelism and having a strong witness. She encourages young Christians to live righteously and draw others to Christ with the light they exude. That is Elder Christina Barr. Wow. I'm excited to have her on tonight. And our man, listen, I want to just say to her dad and to her mom, thank you so much for giving such a beautiful gift to the body of Christ on tonight. Let me bring my co-host in on this evening, Bishop Liston Page II, His Grace. Bishop.
Bishop Taylor, how you doing tonight, my friend?
Listen, I am grateful to the Lord to be alive and, you know, have a portion of life, health, and strength, and all those good things that go along with that. So how about yourself?
Can't complain, man. God is a good God.
Well, listen, just before we get into our dialogue with our guest on tonight, as we do, as is our custom on Mondays, kind of a proverbial review of the weekend, so to speak. And it was awesome once again at the Greater Highway Deliverance Temple on Sunday. It was awesome in our virtual worship. It was awesome at the Mount Olivet Baptist Church in South Jamaica in Hollis. And we just had a tremendous time Sunday night. And then listen, they tell me that Patterson will never be the same again. They tell me Bishop came over there and said, "Excuse me, I'm taking over for the morning." The great generation said, "I'm taking over for the morning." How about that? He said, "Ain't no baby boomers in charge today, and the great generation is here, taking over." And so, I wish I was there for that. I heard it was a tremendous outpouring of the Spirit, and we're just grateful to God to have such a tremendous gift. Bishop, tell us where have you been? I know you're usually spanning the globe, speaking in.
No, you know what? Sunday was really a special day. I was in Washington, D.C. for the 45th pastoral anniversary of Bishop Alfonso Brooks. And it was tremendous. Soon I leave there and I go to another pastor's anniversary, Bishop Ronald Demery, Christway. So my day was filled. Of course, 10 a.m., 11 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So I had a full day. But I'm excited about tonight. Tonight, I am extremely excited about having these young people on with us. I don't know if we can call them young. I think they're probably old at heart, but they may be young in chronological age.
Well, listen, I had Elder Barr's bio, handy, and I'm not sure if you had Dr. Brown, Evangelist Brown, Elder Brown, Dr. Brown. I don't know what part of the affirmation spectrum we want to be on, but I want you to say a little bit about Dr. Brown because I experienced him parenthetically through the comment section, and it was such a powerful, it was so impactful virtually until you said to me, "Mitch, listen, we got to bring this gentleman on."
Listen,
and so tell us about him. Tell us about him.
Listen, he's a tremendous young man. I have grown extremely fond of him. I knew his father. I know his father, Bishop Dow Brown Sr. I knew his grandfather, Bishop Joe Nathan Brown, out of Prince Frederick, Maryland, Greater Bible Way Church. And he comes from a great family background. His uncle, his aunt, I've ministered for them. But he is a young man that I feel has the pulse on what's going on in the church today, and he's old school as well. And you know, I don't want to get on my soapbox of education, but he is an academician. So, you know, he's progressed his MDiv. Now he's going towards his doctorate. So I have tremendous hopes for him. And he's just a great young man. He's married, got a beautiful wife. So listen, I'm excited to have, we affectionately call him Spud, but his name is Darrell Brown, but we call him Spud. So I'm excited about how Spud on us with us tonight.
Awesome. And I can't say enough about this young man, Overseer Kayshawn Joseph, who has been with us the past couple of weeks and is probably the catalyst for this nexus on tonight. So let's bring Overseer Joseph on tonight. Bless you.
Bishop, God bless you, Bishop. It's good to see y'all. How are you doing? Bishop, why are you laughing already? I didn't even say anything. We laughing already, like I didn't even start yet.
Okay, I've come ready tonight for you. I'm really sick of you, but I've come ready for you.
I just got on. Okay, all right, that's fine. We come ready tonight. All right.
Overseer Joseph, tell us about your weekend, man.
My weekend was great. Thank you, Bishop. My weekend was great. My weekend was great at church and everything on Sunday, and of course, so it's been great. I'm getting ready to be married soon. I'll be married. My wedding is next month, so we've just been wedding planning.
Wow.
Getting our home and all that. So it's just been, all that.
Congratulations, Kay.
Thank you so much. God is good. So we're just on that. So it's a blessing. It's work though. It's definitely work. So pray for me.
Wow. Well, that's good. That's good work. That's trouble, but it's good trouble.
Yes.
All right. Well, listen, I don't want to hold up. The clock is ticking, and Overseer Joseph, you have really contributed a tremendous body of conversation to this particular subject matter on tonight. We've talked about, especially in the Black church, millennials are leaving the church. Nearly 6 in 10 young people who grew up in Christian churches end up walking away. And the unchurched segment among millennials has increased in the last decade from 44% to 52%. And I mean, we could see that even in, our church environments, how, young people are, drifting away, especially after high school into college. And if you're in this Northeast region, a lot of those young people, especially our best and brightest, are going off to college in other parts of the country and things. So a lot of transitions are happening with millennials in the church. And I think that, we've kind of identified that we've played a role in possibly not catering to fostering a continuance with our young people by embracing maybe the generations that can touch. So on tonight, I'm grateful for you bringing us into this space.
Oh, thank you, Bishop. It's my honor. Thank you so much.
Good. So let's bring on the woman of God on tonight, Elder Christina Barr. Welcome.
Yes.
Hello. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. And then we're also bringing on Elder Darrell Brown Jr., affectionately known as Spud, as Bishop said.
What's up, brother?
See, he done already started with that.
I didn't come to cause no trouble.
He done already started.
Best behavior. I didn't come to cause no trouble tonight.
Well, Spud, you gonna mess up because your internet is already janky. So you need to get that together, brother. It's already janky.
The Holy Ghost must know I got some stuff to share on my heart tonight. That's what it is. The Holy Ghost knows. My heart is heavy tonight.
Well, I pray that the Holy Ghost gets into that Wi-Fi and keeps us stable. Well, listen, thank you so much, guys, for coming on. Let me just kind of recap just a little bit. Well, you guys have been eavesdropping on the conversation. I don't want to waste a lot of time recapping everything that has been said. However, Bishop kind of, Overseer Joseph kind of hit a nerve when he started talking about this narrative theology. And basically it's a testimony, right? And then Bishop took us a little deeper, and he said it's really called, or it's also called, post-liberal theology. And he went on to explain to us that, you know, it's really a testimony. It's the gospel. It's the dissemination of the word of God. But he also said it was a hermeneutic of natural experience, which I thought was very interesting, because Kayshawn, you said something that hit me, that made me take a note. I didn't want to talk about it last week because I didn't want to put the pinball machine in tilt. But when I came to you, you said, well, Bishop, of course, the narrative, the storytelling, that's the greatest thing you have against us. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, it said ding, 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 because I think one of the things that I want to make sure that we neutralize is that we are not against each other at all. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think that maybe the better phrasing of that would be that's the most equitable part that we can contribute or support you guys with. I know that's what you meant, but I think that even in that, you know, there's a lot of truth in that, because, you know, and I guess the question I want to ask, and because you kind of threw it out there, you know, sometimes in our generations, we're not as approachable. Okay. Doesn't seem like there's an entryway for conversation. It just seems like there's a big gulf fixed between where you guys are and where we are. Bishop Page, you want to kind of push this a little bit further, and then I want to kind of release Spud and Christina and Kayshawn to dive into this.
No, I kind of, if I'm going to push it into a further space, there's only space I'll really push it into is when we talk about the post-liberal narratives, the testimonies, you know, whatever way we want to phrase it. I still think that there's a problem in harmonizing both worlds. And I think we can't really harmonize each world unless we understand the cultural context that each of us come out of. It's like trying to do a hermeneutic on the synoptic gospels and the Johannine gospel, and you cannot harmonize those gospels because you take away the context of each individual writer. So we have to try to understand each other's journey, and then we can kind of juxtapose experiences. And I think we have, in our generation, we have not always done well at juxtaposing our lives to their lives. And I think it's only because we speak different languages. I think we can ever get to a place where I understand their language and they understand mine, we can move forward in a productive relationship. And I give an example. When you start talking about the pinball tilting, the three of them don't know nothing about no pinball tilting. Because those are the type of games that we grew up playing on. So I'm sure there's some other things that they can use as examples that are way outside of my reach, because that's not the language that I speak. So I just use that as an example, you know, that our languages have to find some synergy in order for us to get some understanding. So I would push us into that space of language, understanding, and how do we harmonize our experiences.
Well,
Kayshawn, go ahead.
Oh, I was just looking to Elder Christina and Elder Brown. I've been talking a lot, so I want to hear them first and then jump in.
Um,
I
okay.
yield to Elder Christina.
Okay, so I agree with you, Bishop. I feel like the conversation needs to be had in a space where both sides are willing to understand the different perspectives and even understand and sympathize or empathize with the different experiences, even though one side of the coin may never experience in the same way, that the other side experiences. I think oftentimes, and I am a young person, but I do think that there is sometimes fault within our generation when we do not listen to understand the experiences and the backgrounds that our fathers and forefathers, and what has shaped their idea of Christianity, their relationships, the idea of church. And because some of these ideas change over time, the message is the same, does not change, but some of our approaches need to be able to change as times change. And so sometimes the younger generation says, well, they're not being relatable, so I'm just going to tune this out. And then there also comes a time where the pastors and the fathers are searching for relatability so hard that it becomes inauthentic. I can tell when you're not speaking to me from your experience. If you have like searched up or YouTube what a cool pastor sounds like, and now you're trying to be non-denominational ripped jeans pastor. Some young Christians prefer the authenticity of a father that is willing to listen to their experiences and understand them.
Wow, so that's very interesting. So you used the word that kind of touched on. You said authenticity, and you can feel when someone is trying to be relatable on purpose, but not.
Yes.
In other words, I'm 80 years old and I got on a Kango hat to the side, and I'm coming to the pulpit with cut jeans on.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to be true to yourself. An open mind is something that is revealed with your speech and your mindset and the way you listen and the way you converse and understand. We can tell that your mind is open and willing to hear and understand the experiences without you necessarily having, trying to dress like a young person or use slang that you don't use in your everyday lives, because sometimes it comes across as dated. Some of the sources that we have for slang, it's ever changing. So what may have been cool in 2015 is not relevant in 2023. And so to someone who is 60 years old, like 2015 was like just around the corner, but to someone who is 16 years old, they weren't really, moving around when that slang was out. And so personally, I prefer when preachers speak to me in English. I like you speaking to me straightforward, explaining the Bible and scriptural stories and lessons in ways that we can understand and apply them in today's context. And so, just being open-minded and willing to listen to the experiences lets me know that the sermons are being tailored so that everyone is able to understand and walk away with something that is life-changing and also able to be applied outside of the four walls.
Yeah.
Wow.
Spud, did you want to jump in that? I had something I wanted to.
Yeah, I think for us to ameliorate this whole generational gap discrepancy that we have, I think there has to be grace on both sides. There has to be grace to be understood that you're not going to quite understand everything that I'm dealing with, and we're not going to quite understand everything that you all are dealing with. And when there's grace on both sides, then we can come to a conclusion that we can work together to try to understand each other better. Bishop talked about my dad. My father's here right now. It's a blessing to just have him at my house when he just wants to come, and we just finished eating dinner. And some of the things when we talked about that narrative theology, that testimony, some of the greatest lessons that he taught me in being an evangelist, being on the road, has not been about how to prepare a sermon, has not been about how to exegete any of that, has been about life experience. See, that's sometimes what we don't have is we don't have that life experience. And Judges says a generation arose that knew not the Lord, not simply information, but they had no experience with God. They did not experience the God that was with them in the wilderness. And so while we need that experience, we also need to hear your experience.
Yeah.
That's just like we talked about last week. You tell us your testimony, but not approving our bad behavior, but letting us know, don't go that way. Don't go that way. Now, it's going to sometimes, Bishop, you're going to have to tell us don't go that way, and we're going to go. We're going to go. And we have to have the marks of that. We have to have the marks of that experience, because that's also our process of knowing God, of developing our own testimony with God. So I think, again, we have to have grace for one another. We have to have grace for one another. I'm kind of like Elder Christina. I'm a little harder on my generation because I understand our fathers are more set in their ways. So I think it's our responsibility to do our due diligence to learn your language, to learn the language of our fathers, of our predecessors, to know how we can communicate how we feel, what we're feeling, what we're dealing with, in a way that you all can comprehend and understand.
You know, Spud, I think you raise a very interesting point, but I want to kind of connect that point to something that Christina said as it relates to being relatable. And I think we may try too vigorously to be relatable, and we're not authentic. We're trying to fit into what we think this cultural mode is in order to be effective doing ministry. And I think what happens is we have that because we're looking through the lenses of social media. We're looking at what's popping or what's popular out here, who's getting all the likes, the clicks, all the views, and we try to fashion our style, our message into that context. Now, me personally, but you know me, I pretty much don't change up for anyone. Now, I'm not rigid. I'm not, bent on it being my way, but I do believe there's something about having respect for the orthodox, the ancient, archaic, the foundation. I really believe there's something to be said about the old landmarks. I don't think that we should stay parked there, but I do believe that we should have a rich appreciation for those that have gone before us and have labored and laid such a steady, firm foundation. My challenge is, what you all may call dress down is not dress down to me. I can't get with. I'm having a hard time with the hats in the pulpit, but I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm having a problem with you praising worship leaders with your hats on, all your tattoos. I'm sick of it. I'm really sick of it. I'm sick of it. And I'm trying to find a way not to be unyielding, but accepting. And I still believe the church is a sacred space. I still believe that is the pillar and the ground of truth. I still believe there's a certain way that we should present ourselves when we stand before people. Now, that may sound old-fangled, but so be it. I've just kind of evolved now to letting women in my pulpit with pants. And when I hear they was up in my pulpit with pants, I want to fire every senior elder that was there. But I'm learning that some things is not a salvific issue. It is a personal preference. I know it's personal, and I kind of underscore it as personal preference.
Can I gotta jump into this now, because I think something I would say is that so one of the issues that I would say, and I admit about my generation, and not just my generation, but culturally at this point, ministry has become exceptionally, and I use this term very loosely, but sexy. It's very like, it is about preachers, and it's all about how sexy you can look, how attractive you are. I'm serious. How attractive you are, how attractive you make yourself, you know, on your posts, like in your ground. If you look at many of the comment passages, like they make us look all like, you know, everybody got to look like, you know what I'm saying, sex symbols or something in order to be well received and popular and stuff like that. And so unfortunately, the common trend has become that it's about attractiveness. And I think that's one of the downsides about how visual we are as a generation, because we're extremely visual, and the ones coming behind us are extremely visual. And so with that, there comes a level of being superficial and being very like, just very carnal, really. And so it becomes more, one of the things I would say is that it has made us more focused on personality and on just being myself, rather than saying, hide me behind the cross. We don't hear people say that anymore. That's not a thing. It's like, because we believe, and we've been pushed to believe, I guess people have been pushed to believe that we minister out of your personality, and that, you know, say it is about you. It is about who you are in that moment. And sometimes I think, to an example, what Elder Christina said, the authenticity has gone too far, to the point where like you're now people are just saying whatever in the pulpit, saying whatever across the pulpit, and it's just pushing the level too much, because we're trying to connect and be attractive and win the attention of people. And it's just it's making a mess of the church. I think that's one of the things that I would say is really not good. It's too edgy. You know what I'm saying? It's like everybody's trying to be edgy to each other and jump the shark every week, and it's outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, and see, one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is because of this space now, because our forefathers and where we came from, we didn't have this opportunity to have this public conversation about some of our challenges dealing with the generations that were before us, and trying to figure out how we can communicate, how we can create some shared language. So you guys have the benefit of that, and it kind of gives me, and I think Bishop as well, some solace and some confidence that we're headed in the right direction, at least because the revolution is being televised. Number two, Overseer, you said that, you know, we are image driven. Well, if you look at where we've come out of before this social media phenomenon, a lot of churches were being accused of being personality driven. So there's always some medium that's going to drive philosophically and culturally what we do. So the conversation is very, very important. So the question I want to ask on tonight is, what is the answer? You know, when I hear Bishop saying, listen, I don't like it. I don't like hats. Now, I guess I'm with him on that, because I'm still, you know, we're in this, what I call this spiritual shock jock society. You know what I mean? Whatever you could say that could, you know, just like you said, get the clicks, get the likes, make people say, ooh, 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 ooh. You know, when you start here, I can use examples, but you know, when you start hearing these things that go viral, you know, those are the kinds of things that drive, you know, folks to your platform. And the reality is, that's not the kind of, I don't think that's where what we're trying to use to bring people to Christ. Right. At the end of the day, we're trying, when we look at churches today, years ago, there was a church almost on every corner. Now today, there are churches closing every minute. And I don't know if there's something to be said about, you know, this virtual platform opening up exponentially, more so than the churches that are in brick and mortar that are actually closing down, because this is happening. So I don't know if Bishop or any of the folks here tonight see any synergy in what I'm saying, but there seems to be something that we should talk about tonight.
So can I address the hat issue along with a lot of the other issues? And I think I think it comes with understanding the different generations. So, for example, my grandfather's generation to my father's generation, what they said went. When they said go, they went. No questions asked. Our generation is the generation of tell us why.
Mhm.
So when we got of age, and as Dr. Kashan said a few weeks ago, Kashan said a few weeks ago, you know, y'all trained us to be critical thinkers. And then when we think, you know, we're looked at as rebellious.
Yeah.
We said, you know, please show us in the Bible where we cannot wear a hat in church. And we couldn't answer the question. You all made something that was a preference a salvific issue.
Okay.
And so when we discovered that it was not a salvific issue, when in reality you could have simply told us it's not a sin, it's a preference. That when we come into the house of God,
Yeah.
I'm not one that can wear my hat in church. It's just been engraved in me. And even in some people that come to our churches, even for a youth service, I go up to them myself and say, hey, look, can you please remove your hat? It's just the rule of the house. Look, man, I appreciate if you could take it down. It's not a sin. You're not going to hell. None of that. And so it's certain things like that, that again, where there could have been some biblical transparency and there wasn't. And when we read for ourselves and found out that there was not, then it's okay. Why do I need to take my hat off?
But you know, some people lean on that 1 Corinthians 11 text for men covering their heads in church, and so I'm not sure if that's where Bishop, where y'all kind of got that from or extrapolate that from. But I know that a lot of people have leaned on 1 Corinthians 11, where it talks about men not covering their head, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that, in the house of God, in the presence of God while they're ministering. And so I know that some people utilize that verse. Is that, Bishop, is that where you're coming from with that?
No, not at all. I think that when they use that 1 Corinthians text to justify a personal preference, I think now you're eisegetically presenting the text of scripture and you're taking it out of its cultural context. Mine comes from hat etiquette. Hatetiquette.com. if you just Google hat etiquette, the etiquette or the proper wearing of a hat, they'll tell you is, you know, outside certain public buildings, certain settings, you ought to take your hat off. If you go to a courtroom downtown, they're going to ask you to remove your cap if you're a man. Now, this is just what I believe. I just believe that the church is more sacred than any governmental building in the world. I think the church, the sacred space where we say the glory of the Shekinah glory of God resides. I just think there should be a little bit more reverence in the sacred space than in a secular space. So I'm not pulling a scripture to make fit my personal preference. I'm just saying, I believe that there's certain behavioral practices that are in the secular world that we need to kind of harness and bring to a halt when it comes to the house of God. Watch this. I'm not against tattoos. I'm not against them at all. Wear them. I have no problem with them. But I do believe in our context, they can be a bit distracting and will cause people to be looking at your flesh markings in your body art, and they can miss out on the richness of what's coming out of your mouth. So I think that is one of the reasons why they would have a particular dress code, because they wanted certain parts of your body that may be superfluous I could use that term, to be covered. So women, they didn't want them to wear tight, clinging things because, you know, you see the shape, and they didn't want that to be seen. They didn't want men to wear tight garments because they didn't want certain imprints of his body parts being exposed. So I believe in that. I think that there's a certain way that we have to present ourselves when we stand before people, because people should be more interested in hearing what's coming out of our mouths than critiquing our attire. And they walk away saying, did you see what she had on? Did you see what he had on? I just think that there's a better way for us to present that. That's all.
But I don't know if there's a such thing as, I mean, I might be getting myself in trouble here, but I don't know if there's a such thing. I don't hear the term sacred used very often generationally as much. I don't really hear that concept much anymore. I even hear people say things like, I am the church. You know what I'm saying? There's no, you know, I am the church and not, you know, whatever that means. The building is not the church. And so the idea of something being wholly independent of them is, you know what I'm saying, is problematic. But I rarely ever hear, I don't think things are really considered sacred anymore or considered like whole. I don't really hear that. Like, I don't know. And maybe, you know, Spud or Christina could help me with like understand like what would be considered. What do you think people still consider to be sacred generation our time? Because I don't really know. Everything is familiar.
So I do not agree or subscribe to that sort of theology. And this is, you know, because I was raised by two boomers, right? I was raised that church is sacred. You come into the Lord's house and you present yourself in a way that you would not present yourself any other way. Now, I don't want to talk too much about like clothes, but I kind of have a thing for history. And so I love like historical and cultural context. And so when we think of the history behind African Americans in the Black church, like dressing up, we think of like being disrespected and disregarded in every other space in this country, but being able to have a place where you mattered in church and in God's eyes. So we wanted to present ourselves in the best way we could. We mastered Sunday's best. You know what I mean? Like the styles that people are just getting onto today, we mastered the Sunday's best culturally. And we taught our children that when you come into the Lord's house, you are clean and you are presentable because you want to show God as an outward gesture that God, I am available for you to use me because I set myself apart for your service today. I didn't just roll out of bed. I didn't just put on the same clothes I would put on when I go to the laundromat, because I decided that you are worthy and deserving of my best. Now I'm willing to negotiate, you know, when it comes to certain styles, but my mom was just like very particular about, okay, if you're going to wear pants, like no club pants, nothing that you would wear out to a party to be seen. You should have a different church pants. You should have a different church jean, a different church shirt. You know, modesty is something that is like biblical in context. You know, it can be translated in 2023. There are ways that we can look modest with, you know, wearing pants or wearing dress down clothes. But yes. So I'm sorry if it seems like I'm going into a little rabbit hole, but I don't like the new age wear whatever, I'm the church, because I love the idea of carrying Christ with you wherever you go. But the idea that you don't have to set yourself holy or consecrate in order to be presentable, and you know, is a little funny to me. I feel like we need to have a standard. The standard needs to be that God, I am nothing without you. Please use me. Accept this gesture. Please accept this sacrifice that I'm presenting, because Christina alone is not worthy to be in your presence or to be used. But if you could accept the gesture that I'm giving to show you that God, I am willing to just accept you and do what it is that you have for me to do, say what it is that you have for me to say, live how you have charted out and described and asked me to live righteous and set apart. If we can just accept that there's a standard and that God should not be okay with just anything and just any outfit and just any attitude. Even if we are the church, we must still be set apart and sanctified.
If I can ask, I'm sorry, Bishop.
No. Go ahead. That was powerful. Go ahead,
I can
Spud.
just add something to what Dr. Kayshawn and Elder Bar said, because it's kind of an undercurrent. And Dr. Kayshawn started it off. Is we do live in this I, me, mine, self-centered theology age where we don't value community. You know, we take that whole thing out of context. I'm the church. That's where we get this whole I don't need to go to church. I don't need to come to the house of the Lord and all that stuff. And we fail to realize that the Apostle Paul in his epistles is teaching them how to live in community with one another. And so then that's where we get this, okay, well, if they don't like what I got on, they just got to deal with it. You know, Bishop just talked about wisdom. I have tattoos. I have never gotten up to preach in a short sleeve shirt.
That's right.
I was just somewhere this summer, and it was 100 degrees outside. And I'm ministering, and I'm walking around with a long sleeve shirt, and they're like, "Brown, why do you have that shirt on?" Well, I know where I am, and I don't want these to be, you know, I thought Bishop Taylor, I thought I was going to be a basketball player. I played college basketball. I was not going to preach. I was going overseas or something. So I was getting tattoos all over. The Lord said, come on back. Come on back. But, you know, I think that's wisdom. And I think, again, as Elder Bar said, you know, we do have a standard to live up to. We do have a standard to set. And when we have this I, me, mine theology, you just gonna have to take me as I am. If you have a problem with the pants I have on, that's on you, not on me. If you got a problem with how I look, that's on you, not on me. Forgetting that we should, you know, if it offends our brother and our sister, then we should not. My grandfather, back in the day, when wearing pants for women was out of the question, my grandfather allowed it in our church. He said, this is not a salvific issue. But when we go to fellowship at another church, do not wear them. Mm-hmm. Because that may be an issue for that church, and we don't want to cause offense to our brothers and our sisters. So I think the undercurrent is our theology is messed up with this I, me, my, mine, this self-centeredness where we don't care what others think or how what we do affects others.
Can I ask y'all a question to the bishops? What, flipping the script kind of, what did y'all think of your those that were older than you, the bishops that were older than you, your predecessors, your fathers in the faith? What did y'all think of them when y'all were our age? Did y'all find yourselves with some of the same difficulty? Did y'all find yourselves questioning a lot of the things that y'all were taught and kind of like going through a revisionist state? What did y'all think of them when y'all were our age, and of the church when y'all were our age?
You know, if Bishop Taylor can go first, I'll wait.
No, I was just loading up with air, but either one of us can go, because that's a loaded question. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna let you take it. I'm just gonna put this in so you can take it from here. He said that we taught them to be critical teachers. I mean, critical thinkers, mm-hmm. Critical thinkers, and analyze and question. We were taught to be submissive.
Yep.
So that's, I just wanted to add that, Bishop, because I don't really, in as much as I did scratch my head and say to my dad, really? Like I used to ask my dad a question about hell. And I say, Dad, listen, I was asphyxiated on this. And I think because I was trying to find a loophole, and I was saying to him, I said, listen, Dad, as loving as God is, are you sure that when we go to hell, we're going to go there forever?
Watch that.
It just doesn't seem consistent with the way and the pathology that I've read. He said, the Bible says, you know what I mean? So my point is so we didn't have, Bishop Page, you can help me. It's like what they said was final, and we kind of acquiesced. Now Bishop Page is different. I'm gonna give you an example. Me and his dad is like my dad as well. I kind of piggyback on sonship with his with his family, right? And so one day his dad called me up and said, Mitch, so and so and so and so and so and so, is that all right? I said, Dad, this is Mitch. This is not Liston. I said, it's all right with me. And so, because what he would have asked me, Liston would have said, well, wait a minute, Dad, what did you do? No, I don't know. I think we should have did this. Whereas I'm the type person where I was like, no, Dad, whatever you said, that's fine. You get my point? So he was the one when we were growing up that was pushing the envelope a little bit more. But I'll let him talk for himself.
Okay. No, I think Bishop Taylor articulated it in a way that will best describe me at that time. When I look at Christina and Spud and Kayshawn, when I look at y'all, I do see a reflection of me and Bishop Taylor. But we grew up in a time where there was no such thing as entitlement. Y'all are entitled. I'm really sick of all three of y'all. Y'all are entitled.
That's all of
Y'all
us.
have this entitlement, this whole aura. You know, we didn't have that. We didn't have that. You know, Christina, as beautiful as she is, you could tell she's going to conform. She is going to conform to what is asked of her. But there's a little something there. There's something there that she's gonna ask. Now listen, I'm gonna do this, but does it take all of really? Does it got to take all of that? I'm gonna do that. She's gonna. That's what she's gonna do. Spud and y'all want to be intellectuals, so y'all want to try to use all this language and verbiage and listen. I grew up in a time where we tried to do the same thing, but the repercussions and the consequences were much different than they are for y'all. See, y'all don't like something, you can create a whole nother platform.
True.
And change the narrative.
True.
And have another paradigm. Us, if we push back, you're silenced for 8 months and you bet not get up. So we function out of fear.
Okay.
Y'all function out of this. I got knowledge. It makes sense what you're saying. And I'm going to prove to you what you're saying does not make sense because I'm going to do it my way without your assistance. And let's see who's right. So the dynamics are a lot different. So, you know, I don't see a lot of young people that may have how can I say it? The grace that the three of you all have to be overly tolerant with older people like myself that are really out of a different context. I'm really out of a total different context.
But y'all not that bad.
No, it's not bad at all, but it can be problematic because the way you all ascend, we didn't ascend that way.
Okay.
The way y'all was elevated, we weren't elevated that way. Education for us in the day that I was growing up, I was an outlier. It was not pushed the way it's pushed now. Okay. So everything our forefathers said, we didn't dare get up and say, that ain't Greek. That ain't true. Give an example. I'm gonna give the three of y'all an example. I told this story years ago. I'm teaching Sunday school in my dad's church for the first time. And it was around Christmas time. Watch this. And the text says that Mary was great with child. Now, all of us know Mary great with child means what? She's about to give birth to a child.
Right.
Well, one of the deacons in my father's church was offended because I said she's about to give birth. He said, no, the Bible says she great with child. So that child was great. See, See how you're looking? See how you're looking? See how you're
Lord.
looking? And watch this. I went back and forth, Christina, about 10 minutes with him, and he rebuked me, took over the class because he was the older deacon, and then told my father I was disrespectful. And guess what my father said to me? You should have taken down. He's older. He may not know as much as you, but you were wrong because you should have never went back and forward. Now, let me try to tell y'all that.
It's right. It's right, though.
Let me try to tell Spud, Christina, and Keyshawn, listen, y'all are wrong. Now, you're right, but you're wrong. You got to be respectful. Your attitudes are, I am being respectful by telling them the truth. That is not correct. It's better for me to tell you the truth because they shouldn't be in error either. Our day, we would have to take the hit.
Thank you.
Correct our older leaders.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Sean.
Go ahead, Spud. Go ahead.
Spud, you go ahead. I'm gonna go after you, Spud.
So I think you do have young men and women who do operate in wisdom, like you're saying. I think where we come in is again, we have to know how to talk to our fathers. We have to know how to speak their language. And so I'm an envelope pusher. I just know how to say it. Dr. Keyshawn did it so well the first week. He said, Bishop Page, you're such an excellent pontificator. And Dr. Taylor, you elucidate the text so well, but in such a way, he said, y'all are off right now. After he buttered y'all up. And so I give this example all the time. Who convinced Naaman to get into Jordan? His servant did. His servant knew how to talk to him in such a way when he was offended that the prophet told him to go and get into Jordan. His servant said, hey, come on now. But what if you? So we have to learn the language of our fathers. I know how to get my father to say yes. I know how to present an idea to my father or to my aunt or my uncle in the language that they can handle to get them to say yes. Yeah. We have to know how to present stuff. We got to know how to back off. We got to know when to push. We got to know when to digress. I think that's why I said I'm a little hard on our generation, because we really have to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, especially when working in the church and trying to progress the church. I'm very hard on my constituents say, oh, our pastors, they don't want to be progressive. Well, how are you presenting it to them? Right. Why are you just coming saying we need lights in the LED wall? For what? Do you know how to speak the language of your father? Do you know how to speak the vision of the house? Mm-hmm. So I think, I just think that's kind of where we kind of fall in, is we just know how to say it a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't push.
Good, Christina. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christina.
No, go ahead, Dr. Keyshawn.
Oh, Christina, you go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay, so mine is quick. So along with communication and how you word things and tone of voice, I think time and place is also one big thing that I learned from my father, is that, okay, in the example that you gave, Bishop, Sunday school in front of everybody was not the time or place to shed light and truth to the deacon, And so one of the many lessons that I learned as a young person, because I preach to people older than me all the time on a weekly basis, is time and place. If someone says something to you that they were taught and it was engraved and to them it is truth, it may not be the time or place for you to flex your education and your vocabulary and the wonderful skills that you learned in seminary and secular education. I have bars on my robe. You can't tell me what this means. And it's like, it may not be the time for a basic English lesson, because we could have kind of moved past it. And in another time, in another setting, maybe even when the deacon had brought you to the office, Bishop could have made that correction. A person who has earned, and it kind of sucks, but a person who has earned the respect can mediate and provide some sort of like a middle ground for and okay, I don't want to go too far off, but someone who has earned the respect can mediate and find a middle ground between the two generations of someone who is perceived to know the truth versus someone who has learned or acquired knowledge.
That's good, Christina. I like that. That was good.
I have so much. I want to say again, y'all walk so we can run. Said I have so much respect for y'all and what y'all went through. Because look, real talk, like y'all took it for us. And granted, maybe Spud continued with me too. Like I got in trouble when I went to seminary.
I sat down.
Got it.
Thank you. I got in trouble when because like you go into the cemetery. That's what they said. You go into that cemetery. And so I got in so much trouble. And I would really try to be like to gingerly present stuff and say, and then my uncle kind of started getting wind. Bishop White is only a year younger than Bishop Page. So they're about the same. So my uncle, he just started getting wind. He would know when I was getting ready to say something or ask, and I would never correct him and say, that was wrong. You know what I'm saying? But I would just ask questions and just be like, so does that text, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so he just started getting wind of it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, and I took a licking, like at my church, when I was in seminary, I took a lick, and I was in a Pentecostal school. You know what I'm saying? Church of God, it was Pentecostal. But like, I still took a licking because people thought, well, you think you know everything, and this and that, and we don't do that, and it's gonna take away your fire and all. And so I took a licking. You know what I'm saying? People would always, we ain't been to school like you, and we ain't never. That was a hard thing. You know what I'm saying? And knowing when and how to correct. I think one thing that I thank God for, though, having a seasoned leader, is that correction. Like we learned, you don't correct an elder. You know what I'm saying? And that's Bible. Paul told Timothy, rebuke not an elder, but treat him as a father. So my uncle was really big on teaching us, like, even when you get up to preach, you can't get up fussing and carrying on and telling the people, you know what I'm saying, and rebuking the generations and rebuking the mothers and fathers. He was very big on that. And he would tell you, like, sit down, like, you know what I'm saying, if you were doing that, because we believe in honoring them. Even if you know what's right, even if they're wrong, there's a way in which you have to carry yourself. You let your example be the light and do it in that way, but you don't get up corrected. And I think that's another thing I don't like seeing. A lot of my brothers and sisters, they love a rebuke and a correction and telling people what to do, and y'all ain't do this and y'all ain't do, and it's just like we weren't allowed to correct. I remember getting my messages checked and verified before I preached it at a point. You know what I'm saying? Like you couldn't just get a rebuke in the church. Like that was not your place. So I just that's all I got to say about that. That's all.
Yeah. Wow. Sean, I got the chew the meat and spit out the bones.
Yeah.
That whole thing. And my response to that was, if I have to spit out the bones, then I'm not getting the most of my theological education. If I can't deal with the stuff that I don't want to deal with, am I really going to grow in this theological, space? So yeah, you definitely get the comments, the sarcastic comments.
Oh yeah.
Here comes the doctor. Here comes the, you definitely get those. You definitely get those, and then we got to sit and listen, to what you're preaching. It's like, amen. All right.
It's
all right. See, I can't go off.
That's
like
what they
Bishop
talk about
Page.
us. No, that's
I can't go. We can't go off like Bishop Page. We can go off like Bishop Page. We can't go off like Bishop Page. You know what I mean? I was listening to him yesterday, Bishop Taylor. He told the people they had went to Fried Chicken University. We can't go off like.
Oh my God.
We just sit there and bear it.
No, but what I appreciate, this is what I really appreciate, learning from you all, because I learn every time I have a conversation with Spud. I learn something. I've learned something from Christina tonight. I think we have this assumption that everyone in your age bracket are rebellious. They're lone rangers, they're rogue, they're renegades, they're mavericks. I think that is the misconception from those in my era, that these young and up and coming preachers and theologians and academicians are just mavericks. They're cavalier about what has laid the foundation for them to be who they are. They're unappreciative, they're entitled, and that's really the narrative that is being purported about you all. And I'm sure the narrative about us is we're all Sauls. We just hate David. I mean, and I don't think that narrative is true on either side. I do think that I place a high level of accountability on the three of you all, because you're entering into what I would call a sacred fraternity, carrying the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's sacred to me. Anyone that knows me, properly and rightly dividing the word, I take that stuff very seriously. A pure hermeneutic that comes from a proper lens. I'm big on that stuff. So when I see topical preaching transcending expositional presentation, I do have a problem with that personally.
Well, listen, we could continue this conversation until tomorrow morning, I guarantee you. But one of the things I did want to highlight that Elder Barr brought out tonight that I think speaks to one of the language barriers is the hat situation. I think that, Christina, thank you so much, because you presenting it was much better than me presenting it, and much better than Bishop Page presenting it. I'm gonna tell you why. Because it's not just about preference. It's really about the sacredness of God and his house. There used to be a time, and we're going to end on this, that when people walked by the church, if they were smoking a cigarette, they would flick the cigarette away when they walked by the church. Or if you walking by the church with your friends and y'all having a loose conversation, somebody said a curse word, somebody hit you and say, hey man, this is a church, man. Oh man, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? So now that has changed a lot today. All right, because the sacredness has been lost with the representation. And we'll talk about that in our next conversation, because this is important, because what you represent will stay sacred when you represent sacredness. And I think that when you said, listen, algebraically -50 wouldn't be low enough to come before the presence of God. You didn't say that, but I'm just kind of paraphrasing how I want to come before God. I'm already not worthy. I'm already struggling in my flesh. I'm already trying to present myself to God. So when I prepare to come to worship, you know, I want you to know I took some time to do this, God. Now, if I don't have no clothes, come as you are. You know what I mean? That's not the issue. But when you have, and I'll just say this, please, musicians, you know, I'm team musician. But when you have musicians that roll up in the pulpit, the hats tilt to the side, pants halfway down, I call them cracky. You see the crack of their butts. You know what I mean? I call them cracky. They got the hat to the side and cracky shows up. And that's cool. But that's not cool, because it says that you don't, and it's not because they don't respect, but it's because they don't understand the sacredness of where they're serving. Because if they understood that, they would not come into that sacred space that way. It has nothing to do with Bishop Taylor, nothing to do with Bishop Page, has everything to do with our reverence for God. You know, and I think that's very important. So, Christina, you blessed me when you said that, because it gives me some hope that you guys understand that. You know, I don't care about the style and the whatnot. It's the preparation that you took to come before God. I didn't want to go on a rabbit hole, but that touched me. That meant something to me. You know, and so what we want to remain sacred, we have to represent. All right, listen, I would love for you guys, and I hate to put you on the spot like this, but we only scratched the surface of this conversation. I'd like to get you guys back, if Bishop Page will allow, if we can do. if we can do this on next, if he don't beat y'all up too much, because he, But listen, I'd love to get you to come back and do a part 2 on next week if your schedule will accommodate it, and we can finish this dialogue and go a little bit deeper into what we started on tonight. All right. In order to do that, real talkers, we got to raise some money. That's it. We got to raise some money. This is not a money platform, just so you guys know. This is really a platform that me and Bishop Page developed for the sole purpose of keeping people connected during the pandemic. That was the whole purpose. It wasn't about raising no money. It wasn't about, we didn't care who came on. We just wanted to come together, just talk, keep people, in the sacred space while we were in an unfamiliar territory. That started in March 2020, and we've been talking ever since. And so, but we appreciate the Real Talkers for sowing into the ministry and giving us the resources that we need to continue to present excellent ministry or ministry of excellence. So I'm going to ask on tonight if I can get 40 people tonight to sow a seed tonight of $23, just $23. I would believe tonight that God would be glorified, and you will unlock the safe to your blessing. What is that? Luke 6:38. Give, that unlocks. And he said he'll give it back to you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over, and cause resources to be given into your bosom. So tonight, the ways to give are on the screen. $ the Kohi Nation, PayPal, Zelle, kohigives@gmail.com. All right. Ladies first. Christina, final remarks.
Final remarks. This conversation has blessed me. I think we are realizing that we have more similarities than we do differences. And there's truly, through Christ, there's more that connects us than that divides us. So I'm excited to dig into some other topics to see our similarities and differences. But I am blessed and honored to have been part.
Thank you. Spud?
I am grateful and honored to be a part. Thank you, Bishop Taylor. Thank you, Bishop Page, and to Dr. Kayshawn and Christina. I commend you all on this platform. I think for so long we have been standing outside the house yelling that the house is on fire with matches in our hand and a bucket of water in the other. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to not be the problem, but to be the solution. So I commend you both on just inviting us to this conversation.
Overseer.
It's a blessing being here. Thank y'all for the opportunity and to serve. Y'all disarm me, man. Y'all really, it was y'all being nice to them today, because I'm telling you, I took the ribbon for y'all. I took the L for y'all. You know what I'm saying? I took the ribbon. Y'all disarm me. And I say that in a loving way, because I don't feel, like, even when we talk about the tension that exists, I don't really feel any tension here. I really appreciate y'all taking the time to hear us out. I don't feel that way. So it's hard for me to even address differences and stuff, because when we get together and talk and share our hearts and minds and just begin to share language, it just helps us to understand one another better and just build in that way. So I feel disarmed. I don't have any problems with the, well, we'll see. I'm cool. I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool.
Well, listen, we want to thank you guys. We really do want to thank you guys for coming out on tonight. And we look forward to seeing you on next week. Yes. And it's gonna get a little grimy next week. So I'll see if we still like each other after that.
Well, I think if the church is going to look like the three of you, I'm very, very excited about doing collaboration and partnership, because I think we're better together than we are separate. But I really think that I want to drill into that whole notion of dishonor and disrespect. Where does it come from? Is it rooted in we're just too transparent, we're too exposed, too much of our inconsistencies are revealed, and it causes your generation not to have the proper confidence and respect and honor for us? I want to talk about that. Is exposure good? Is being open and honest good? Is showing you all of my scars? Is that good? And this, I call it that shock treatment, when you say things across the pulpit and you want to get people's attention, but you say certain words, use certain vernacular. I watched Christina when Bishop Taylor talked about cracky, and she smiled and her eyes got wide, because I'm sure she did not expect him to use that type of reference, good, bad, or indifferent. But are those references, how are they viewed in your generation? Is it off color? Is it too off color? Is it something we should do more of? I'm very curious to know, what is the real language that grabs your attention?
Right. Well, you know what, Bishop? In full disclosure, before Christine speaks, I got that from you.
Oh, of course you did. Of course you did. I'm the one who say crazy things, so I'm sure.
Go ahead, Christine. I'm sorry.
Okay, so like very quickly, so cracky definitely got my attention. It caught me off guard, but it also made me listen in to the description. Like I wanted to know who was Cracky, and then when you described him, it's like, okay, I know Cracky. Cracky has played at my church. Cracky has played at the conferences and concerts, And so it helped me, it drew me in, and it made me want to listen to what it is that you were describing.
The plot twist is that it's not, your problem is not really with us. The rebels are not the young preachers. The rebels are young musicians, and that's the real. The musicians are the ones I'm serious. That's where the headbutting happens at. It's not us. Like, you know what I'm saying? The musicians will argue with y'all. We're not gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? But hey.
And you know what? It's interesting you said that, because if you look back, and Kayshawn, this is a challenge for you. Go back and do a study on musicians that have become pastors. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Go back.
Okay.
Spud, check it out. Christina, check it out. And then you'll understand why Cracky is being challenged the way he's being challenged. There's an anointing on his life.
Yeah.
There's a call on his life, and he don't even know 20 years from now, he ain't gonna be on the organ. He's gonna be leading the great church. I'm just using that analogous of, us not really knowing.
Now we're gonna argue too. Now, don't.
I think,
Not as bad as them, though.
I just kind of, I don't know if the tension is all centered around presentation, for me, as it is not knowing what you're talking about. I guess that's my tension. It's not always about presentation, because I can get over that when what you're saying makes sense, and I know eventually you're going to evolve to another place of sobriety as it relates to presentation, because you're not going to be able to go in all these different venues where God wants to take you the way you want to go. You're going to have to conform to environments in order to be heard. And I think that's my challenge. When are you going to evolve to that, when you realize God has anointed me, he's gifted me, he's given me this great opportunity, but in order for me to maximize it, I've got to be flexible, and I've got to learn how to adapt and adjust to certain environments to be effective. And I think that's one of my concerns.
Can I just leave one thing that maybe we can tackle next week too, when we're talking about this honor and honor? I think, and I don't know if Elder Barr and Dr. Kayshawn have this issue as well, is that the office of the bishop, and it meant something totally different in my grandfather's generation. There was a whole nother level of respect of those who held that office, of how they carried themselves, and you know what's going on now is difficult to watch.
Wow.
Difficult to watch.
I'm gonna touch on that.
It's difficult to watch. Maybe we can broach that. You know, just
I'm not.
just
You out on your own, bro. You on your own. You ain't getting me out.
But you know what? Bishop Taylor and I have had this conversation privately. We do see the Episcopal office being diluted. When I see my father as a bishop, I don't see myself as the same class of bishop as my father. I make no bones about it. In fact, I really look back over my episcopacy. I should not have been consecrated a bishop when I was. I wasn't ready for that. I grew into it, but I was not ready for the weightiness of that office in that position. And I think what you're saying, Spud, is our forefathers, when we saw them walk in a room when Bishop showed up, it's like the air was sucked out of the room, because it was someone that really represented being in the presence of God and being consecrated. But today, it's just another title. It's just another position. It doesn't have the, and I know y'all get tired of this word, but it doesn't have the sacredness that's attached.
It doesn't have the same weight, but yet you still want the same honor.
That's right.
Which is, you know, but I don't know. Maybe we just dive a little bit. I don't know. Sean said he's out of it, so
we have to talk about it a little bit, because, and this is coming from a young preacher, like the bishops are getting younger and younger, and the lifestyles are not exactly matching up to what we expect of a bishop. And it seems like we have to make up higher titles to say, well, this is a big bishop, this is a super big bishop. Like, so many young people are walking around holding Episcopal rank, you know, without having the life experience, the time on earth to spend with God, to achieve, you know, certain levels of just respect from the church. But I want to also submit for next week for the musician thing, the idea of compensation and like people feeling entitled, like the church needs them. I think social media and the pandemic made it very clear that you need singers and musicians even when you don't have people in the building. And so churches began compensating and putting people on payroll for things. And some people have like conflated the idea that like they're needed and like we can't do ministry without them. So they think we have to take them as they are and they're above rebuke. And so I think we can kind of dig into that, because I'm a singer. So I understand, you know, I don't like people picking at musicians because I am a singer, but I understand what it means to, you know, be compensated for a job, but also understand that this is not me singing a studio jingle gig for Cheerios. This is coming into the Lord's house, ushering in his presence. And there is a different level of preparation that comes with the two.
What Christina is referring to, too, I think she's referring to that status. Elder Christina is referring to that status that said from this week that said church without musicians would be boring. I think that was what it said,
I didn't
right?
see it.
Church without music, church without, I think church without musicians and singers or something like that would be boring.
Well, what I want you all, the three, to think about also addressing, we couldn't, in my era, we couldn't do both. We couldn't do secular and sacred. We either had to do one or the other. So I don't know what that concept is in this generation's mind, and I'm really interested to unpack that, because I grew up as a musician, and I could only do one. I wasn't, and I was capable and talented enough to do both, but my father would not allow that. You're gonna play in church or you're gonna play in the world. I mean, I don't know if he was right or wrong, in your perspectives, but I want to talk about that because that seems to be a common practice. And maybe going back to Christina's point, maybe the musicians today say the church can't afford me to pay me what I'm worth, but a secular gig can. So maybe I make my money there and then I come back and render my gift as a service to the church. I don't know what the concept is, but I want us to talk about that.
Well, and I think that, you know, if we certainly should do that. And I think that if we are going to have a conversation about a particular people group, that we should have a people group representative because it wouldn't be fair to, you know, talk about them and not have someone respond from that group. So, Bishop, if it's all right, maybe we'll think about that. If we had a segment to talk about that, we can bring that person in during that segment, maybe. But this is very, very, man, we were supposed to be off this by now. This is very, very interesting.
It is.
You know, post
needed.
Yeah, this is very interesting post conversation preparing for next week. So I took copious notes. So I'll have everything, you know, sent to you guys via email, so you'll be able to kind of regurgitate this when we come back on next week. And I think this was great. This was awesome. Bishop, any final words?
Listen, this was fantastic. And as I always say, God gives his best to those that give their best to him. So I think we've given God the best tonight, and we can expect in return. Oh, wait a minute. Neil Robeson is on this tonight. Neil Robeson. Neil Robeson. We should see if we can get Neil, because he used to sing with B.B. King and in church at the same time. Because you know, he come from he ain't never been anointed. He's
oh Lord.
He ain't never been anointed. He always
Neil, I didn't say that. Liston said that.
Let's see if we can get Neil, who is an artist, on with us next week with this panel and see his view about doing both.
But you know what, Bishop, too, that's interesting because Neil represents probably our pathology. It'd be good to have maybe him, and then maybe someone from the millennial or, you know, the generation. Yeah. So I mean, give us that, because he gonna be where we are, and we need somebody that's gonna be where they are. You know, wherever that is on the.
Well, be honest. Listening to them, they sound like they're where we are to a certain degree. Particularly Christina, they sound like that they do see that there is a difference.
I think they're being nice to us tonight, Bishop. I really think, Bishop, I know you think that, but I kind of see through the Maybelline a little bit here, a little bit. I think they're being nice to us, okay. Bishop.
Okay. He's saying you all are being disingenuous.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I just said they're being nice. They're being nice. They have a tremendous amount of respect and deference for you, Bishop. And they're being nice. And I do believe they're being genuine, and I do believe that they're being as transparent as possible.
You know, that K-Sean, I don't know about him. That K-Sean, he I don't know. I don't know about him. But I believe Christina and Spud. I think
what did I do? I don't know what I did. I don't even know what I did.
Well, listen, this has been great, guys. Thank you so much. We'll continue this on next week. And Real Talkers, thank you for being with us again for another edition. Please give our guests a big round of applause. Bring Bishop back, T. Certainly, Bishop, it has been, you thought about this idea a month ago. And so I want to thank you for innovating this conversation for the Real Talkers on tonight. And when it started. So thank you, Bishop. Thank you so much.
Man, listen, Mitch, this has been great, man. I really believe, you know, and you know, I'm looking at the numbers. The numbers keep going up. The more we talk, and we got to go. But I think this is a conversation that people want to have, and it probably hasn't been facilitated this way, where it's no real visceral dispositions, but right. we're trying to come and find out the common ground, the commonality, where we can all kind of function and operate in the same space and there be no conflict.
Right. This is great. This is really great. And only you can take us into these deep waters. Only you can take us there. And you know, I was calling you from this morning because I was realizing, man, it's Labor Day. I said, these millennials and Z's, they might be saying, Bishop, we don't want to talk to y'all today. This is Labor Day. But I'm grateful that they acquiesced and they were here with us on tonight. So, Bishop, thank you so much, man, for creating this dialogue and whatnot. And I'm just excited about where we're going. So we got a few announcements to make. Wednesday morning is our Wednesday morning word, 6 a.m. Invite everybody to come. Wednesday night is our School of the Bible with Bishop Liston Page. And then Friday is Friday night encounter. Mm-hmm. And we got some things we're doing this week and whatnot. So, all right. So that's it, man. Walk with the King today and be a blessing.